Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to do my VCT Pacific power rankings and predictions. I'm going to go through all 11 teams, rank them into these 5 tiers, and also go through every game and predict every game. Normally I do these in 2 separate videos, but just with everything going on with all of like the preseason America's prep and preseason EMEA prep, I decided to just shove these into one video for at least this week. If you guys enjoy, just let me know in the comments below. If you prefer this to the separate videos. But overall, I think this is the better format, or not this. That was the better format just because it gets me more views, like getting the views combined from both the predictions and the power rankings. Yeah, regardless, let me know. Also, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Really helps me out. As well as go check out my Twitter where I do weekly player rankings. That again, I update every week for Americas, EMEA, and Pacific. Just posted my first Pacific one on Tuesday, which I think was probably one of the most changed player rankings I've had in a while, mainly because it's a lot of people moving around roles and stuff, but still very good. And I think it's a decent ranking. Some players feel low, some players feel high, but I don't know. Regardless, yeah, if you guys enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, everything like that, and I'll see you guys in the beginning of the video because I don't feel like re-recording this. All right, and to start here in the bad tier, we have the same 3 teams as last time: Bleed, GE, and DFM, just in a different order this time. I think a lot of people will have Global last after week 1, but honestly, with what Bleed showed, I still wasn't very impressed with that. And they, I think, made a downgrade in terms of overall roster, but maybe it'll be an upgrade in terms of just vibes and they'll look better. But I think they made a downgrade on their roster and were probably the worst team last split, and are definitely the worst team in Pacific for the overall year. So I'm still going to leave them in last for this week. If Global looks like they did last week again, then I'll probably move them down. But for right now, I'm going to leave them in 10. And then DFM, like, I know they put up a really good fight against RRQ, but honestly, I don't think May and Medusa can show up at that level every week. So I'm going to leave them here in this tier. Again, could move up next week, but I'm not going to try to, I'm going to try not to overreact to just 1 week, despite it being the first week of the split. I'm just going to leave things generally how they are. Then I'm going to also leave Zeta and where they are in terms of the spot. I do have some teams moving up a tier above them just because, I mean, they got 13-0'd. Like, of course, they're going to move down at least a little bit, a tier or a spot or whatnot, but I still don't think they're worse than the teams below them. I think they're just in a limbo spot where, like, to me, I can't justify dropping any of their players right now. I think Sugar, just played well too good of a game. Depp is so good. I think Yarn and Hero Run have shown a lot of potential in games here and there. They've been pretty inconsistent, but overall, I think they've shown some nice stuff. And then Laz is a really good individual, but they just don't have an IGL. They can't adapt to anything ever. And they're just stuck in this weird spot where this team, like, they have a bunch of good players, but they're never really going to amount to anything. And it's just a really tough spot to be in. All right, now moving on to our next tier, where this is 3 teams that I think have a large amount of potential, could be some of the best teams in Pacific, but right now I don't think they're quite there with the top 4. And we're going to start with T1, who I think some people are going to be surprised to see come in at, I think, 7th, right? Like the first team in this tier. And yeah, Stacks, he looked really good. I think the team overall looked really good. But some of the mid-rounding was really slow, and generally I prefer maybe not slower paced teams, but like FNS fast teams, if that makes sense, where like, yeah, they end up hitting the sites late in the round sometimes, but they're actually like doing things in the mid-round, which T1 most of the time was doing, but there were times where it kind of felt weird, and I didn't love it too much. And also right now, I don't think Izu is fully there on the duelist, and I don't think if they are to play maps like maybe Ascent, maybe Bind, Bind, they could probably get away with Scion, Sage, or Chamber. But maps like, maybe just Ascent, honestly, maybe Icebox as well, then you could get into territory where Saya Chamber might not be that great, and you'd want to swap over to maybe a Killjoy, and then at that point they're shifting all of their roles around and putting Itsu on Smokes, Exir probably back to Sentinel, and then Saya back to the Jet, which I'd prefer them to put the Saya on the Killjoy, which also would take time to get to the level that you'd need him at to be a high level player. I just I want to give this team a little bit more time before I put the expectation on them of being maybe a top 4 or 5 team in Pacific. And yeah, I'm gonna hold off just a little bit. Now they're still very good. There's still a reason that they're in this tier and they're kind of interchangeable with the other two. But right now, I'm gonna leave them at number 7. Then at number 6, I do have Talon moving down 1 spot. And again, I think this might be high for some people. But need I remind you, this team went 4-1 last split. Their one loss being to Gen G. Now their 4 wins were against Secret barely, against T1, against Global barely, and against Bleed. So that being said, not the most impressive wins, but also they got shit smashed by Paper Rex of all teams. So I'm not gonna dink them too much for that. I'm not gonna give up on them for that. I think the one thing that honestly made me drop them was because of them swapping their roles around to put Surf on Jet, even though Gov's Jet is perfectly fine. I just don't think Gov really showed up on the KO too well. And I'd want to see them just swap that back. Put Surf on Sentinel, put Ban on that flex role, and just leave the roles the way they were. I did not see a need to change that. Maybe they saw one within the team, but overall I thought it looked fairly okay. I don't get why they changed it. Maybe they wanted to put Cruz on more like breach agents, which was what Ban was playing, I guess. I don't know. I can't see too many reasons um, other than that, but yeah. I still think they're a good team and I still think they'll be good. But again, just got to see it with this team. They are playing RRQ next, a tough opponent. Then they play DFM, which should be a win, but it's on a 2-game week, so I don't know. And then you have DRX, which also should be a really tough game. They probably lose that, and then they should beat Zeta in the last week of the season. But again, anything could happen there. So maybe they fall off, but honestly, I still think this team should be in a good spot to at least make playoffs and look decent in playoffs, possibly make champs. But I kind of doubt it, especially with these roles. Then you have Team Secret, who I think are another team that people are going to say is too low here. But like, do I think they have a ceiling of like making playoffs at an international event? No. Do I think some of these other teams do? Like, I think Talon do. I think T1 do of making playoffs at least. Maybe not like doing anything in playoffs, but making them, I think they do have potential. Um, that being said, I still do think they have potential to be one of the better teams within Pacific, just because I think they're one of the more disciplined and like normal teams, if that makes sense, in Pacific to like in terms of the mid rounding with Jesse Vash, just their general game plans and everything like that. I think Jeremy has absolutely raised the ceiling of this team. He is looking so good, even though I feel like I do still underrate him in my player rankings. Envy is still one of the most underrated players in the world. He's so good. Wild Oreo looked really good. Want to see more from him. 2GE looked pretty solid. I'm expecting that most weeks out of him, honestly. So if this team can look like they did last week, maybe not choke away a 10-2 lead on Ascent, then they got me into this great teams tier with them. Now onto the great teams tier, where we're going to start with RRQ. And I know this is probably high for some people, but I still believe in the roster talent here. I mean, like, they still have Monette, they still have Texture, or not Texture, fuck, Jemkin. That was the other duelist that I was really excited about coming into the year. They still have Estrella, who I think, given more experience on this IGL role, like main IGL without Flip Shitter, he can be really good. He just needs a little bit more time, not just 1 week. Elmi Moore is still insanely good at shooting. He still makes some mistakes in terms of just over pushing, but I think he'll take it with the raw mechanical skill that he has. And I think Zephyr is just a really solid Sentinel player. Overall, I think of what a lot of their issues boiled down to was them not knowing how to play their triple initiator comp on the defense side. They just did some weird ass shit. Jemkid never used his Gecko Flash like on defense, or he barely used it on defense. And yeah, it just led to them having a really rough half, and then they kind of brought it back on attack, looked really good, and then in OT closed it out, and then Ascent they just kind of just did their thing and just won. I don't know, like Ascent was pretty normal. Icebox obviously had its issues, but I think overall, I still feel pretty good about them going forward. I just that game did give me some pause with this team. Then you have DRX, who I promise you I am not moving up into this international contenders tier until they actually make an international event. Um, Mako's IGLing looked pretty decent. I thought it was going to be Bane. Um, but like it was still DRX. Buzz looked really good as he has. Flashback looked really good on this flex roll, I guess if you call it that. It's like secondary smokes. He played KO on Sunset, which was the one map they lost. So take that as you will. Bane, I thought looked pretty solid. He was doing a lot of fakes on Breeze with the Sova util, like solo fakes. So he looked like he was calling a lot as well. So you can take that into account. And then Foxy9 still looked really good on the Sentinel. So I'm really glad they kept these roles together. I'd kind of revise my um, off-season grade from like a D plus to like a C plus maybe, just because my main concern was the roles, but I think these roles are actually maybe in a better spot now than they were before. So overall, great week from DRX. Just I need to see them do it in a pressure scenario, if that makes sense. Like beating Zeta 13-0 and then dropping the second map isn't necessarily the most impressive thing to me. Then you have Genji Paper X top two. Not too much to say. Genji did look a little tired in the game that they played against T1, but other than that, they closed it out. They won. Charon is very good. And yeah, Texture started slow, as he does at most events, honestly, but kind of picked it up throughout the series. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have too much to say about either of these teams because it's been the same thing with them the whole year. Just two really, really great teams. PaperX, I'm not moving them to the top spot, like similar to DRX, until they show that they can really do something and maybe surpass Genji at an international level, not just a regional level. So yeah, that's it for the power rankings. Now moving on to predictions. All right, so I'll try to go relatively quickly through this. RRQ, Talon. This seems like a pretty even matchup on paper to me, but when I was watching Plat Chat, they were really down on Talon, like really, really down, and I think they almost guaranteed an RRQ win here. But I still do think RRQ should win this game against Talon. I don't think it's like a guarantee or anything like maybe the Plat Chat guarantee would uh, show, but I think Talon should be able to put up more of a fight here, and they'll have a chance at winning. I don't think they will again, but I don't know. RRQ is just good. Then Paper X DRX. I'm gonna take Paper X. I think Paper X is in historically had the upper hand in this matchup. I don't know if DRX has ever beaten Paper X. I can check that while I keep talking. But two really great regular season teams. I just don't know if yeah. I don't know. DRX did win in the Pacific regular season last year and at when they met in Masters Reykjavik, the second one. So DRX has won before, but PaperX has beaten them 5 times in a row. I'm gonna pick that to continue, honestly. Then GE Bleed. GE's my 10th ranked team, Bleed's my 11th. I'm just gonna take GE there. Pretting them for the second week in a row. That feels awful to do, but I, I think we know what I'm gonna do for these other two games, the next 2 weeks. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I think they'll pull through there. Maybe I mean that is one of the worst games of the season, probably. Now that I'm actually thinking about it, that is awful. And I just want to move on to the other worst game of the season, DFM Zeta, where I had these guys power ranked right next to each other. I have Zeta a tier above. Um, and I think I'm gonna take no, I'm gonna take Zeta. I don't want to just pick the team that I power ranked over the other team every time, but I think I'm gonna take Zeta here, just because I still have some faith. If they lose this game, all my faith is gone. So I'm just gonna take them there and use that logic, I guess. Then DRX in their second game of the week, I'm actually gonna pick them to lose to RRQ. Just because the 2-game week, I know it didn't really affect Secret. I guess it affected them in this first game against Bleed, but that might have been a slow start. Um, but I think it'll end up. Oh, it's RRQ's second game of the week as well. There's other reasons though. I think they'll just be a lot better in their third game of the season. And yeah, I think they'll edge out DRX here. Then Team Secret T1. This one's a really fun matchup, honestly. You get Stacks versus Envy, two insanely good initiator players. You got, I mean, just the matchup of IGLs, which I think Xcurate is slowly getting better, kind of getting up into that tier with Jesse Vash. And overall, like, I do believe a little bit in both of these teams. I'm going to take Team Secret because I think I disrespected them a little bit more in the power rankings than I did T1. So I'm going to do that to make up for it. So yeah, these are my predictions. I'm actually going to go through my bet predictions as well, as long as I have points. So yeah, we'll do that as the last thing for this video. All right, so I said I would bet the rest of this on the MIBR game, MIBR Lev game, depending on if Fraud is playing or not. But I think I'm going to just put 50 on 2 games here and then use the like 269 left. Or maybe I'll do 69 on one and 50 on the other. I think I'm going to put the 69 on Paper Rex here just because, I don't know, man. I think they should win that game. I did not mean to look at Americas. I meant to look at Pacific. I just think they should win that game, honestly. And I don't really have too much thoughts against that. Like, I just believe in them to win that game. So I'm going to bet on it, and the odds aren't terrible. So I'm going to take them there. And then I think I'm going to take RRQ in this game for 50 as well. So these are my bet picks for this week. We got Paper X, DRX. I'm going to take Paper X and then RRQ over DRX. Picking against DRX both times. I'm assuming they're probably going to win one of these, but what if they don't? Also, these are my Americas ones in case you're curious. But regardless, yeah, that'll be it for the video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.